Hi, this is Ray from Independent Motorsports, and today we're going to talk about how to purchase a motorcycle. I've been buying bikes for the last 20 years. I'm going to share a few things that would be helpful for the purchase of your next motorcycle. We're going to cover 3 key components: the engine, chassis components, and finally cosmetics. First off, let's take a look at the engine. Let's face it, if the engine's not running, you don't have much of a motorcycle. And I say this simply because a lot of times bikes are not running. And the seller may say it's not running because of the dead battery. Often that could be the case, but what I've found is when an engine is not running, you cannot test 4 key elements of the bike and the engine. And that is air, spark, fuel, and compression. So let's take a better look at these components. Now we're going to take a deeper look into the 4 elements of the engine. Now all these elements are happening inside. The way it works is fuel is captured here at the fuel tank. It's delivered over to here. Sometimes it could be the carburetor. In this case, it's the throttle bodies that delivers certain amounts of fuel into the different cylinders. It's mixed with air and spark. At that point, when you combine compression, you get a successfully running engine. So when you get the engine running, at that point in time, you could listen for engine noise, obviously. You're going to be listening for knocking, stuff that doesn't sound right, okay? But beyond that, you're able to test different systems of the bike. When the engine is running hot, you could test the cooling system if it has a radiator. You can also test an electrical system, which will tell you, perhaps, is it charging the battery properly? And the final test, the best test of all, it's the test ride. You want to be able to test the transmission and the motor working together with the other components. Now we're going to talk about 3 chassis components: tires, brakes, and suspension. Now, when you're looking at the tires, obviously more tread is better. If you're looking at a bike and it has low tread and wondering if you need it, if the tire needs replaced, simply there's a wear indicator that the manufacturer puts in the tread pattern of a tire, and it's basically a bump. When that bump becomes flush with the rest of the tire, that's a good indication that the tire needs replaced. Some other things to look out for is if the bike hasn't been ridden a lot, you may see some weather cracking in here or on the sidewall of the bike. I would be alarmed of that, as well as if the bike is not inflated properly. If it's underinflated or overinflated, you may have unusual wear patterns in the tire tread. That usually happens more on the front tire. So when you're looking at the brakes, there's a couple things to think about. When you're looking at the rotor, you want a nice, even, smooth pattern on the rotor. You don't want to feel any grooves. If you feel some grooves, that means somebody was very late in terms of replacing the pads. As far as the pads go, if you can get a visual on those, just like the tires, there should be a wear indicator, and it tells you when to replace the pads. When you have a hydraulic braking system, the really quick, easy check is look at the brake fluid. It should be clear, it should be opaque, it should not be dark. If it's dark, that means they haven't replaced it at the manufacturer intervals. You obviously want to see something clear. As far as the front suspension is concerned, the key thing to look for is fork fluid leak. What happens there is fork fluid in the upper tube comes out on the inner tube, and it's very evident that you'll see traces of fluid on here. If it's not addressed in a timely manner, the fork fluid gets all throughout the braking system, on the rotors and the pads, and it compromises your braking system. A quick check on the fork fluid leak is basically grab the handbrake, hold onto the bike, and bounce up and down on the front suspension. Inspect the fork. If you see fluid on the inner tube, you got a problem. As far as the cosmetics go, aside from how the bike looks, what I want you to be aware of is signs that the bike has been laid down. There could be a dent in the tank. There could be scrapes and scratches. What I want you to be aware of is where to look to see how bad the damage is. And a couple places you could look is on the high points of the bike, such as the handlebar controls. The brake lever may be bent out, the end of it may be snapped off or ground down, and you could have grinding on the bar end. As far as the engine case goes, this is not easily replaced. It's easily repainted, and you would see grinding and damage to that. Foot controls, same thing. You're going to see them bent in or out and ground down. These are some of the things to look for to determine if a bike has been laid down or wrecked. So I hope this video was helpful to you on the purchase of your next motorcycle. Here at Independent Motorsports, we have a large inventory of motorcycles, all of which go through a 48-point safety inspection. Stop by and see us or check us out on the web at indmoto.com. Thanks for watching and have a great ride.